Hi, everyone. Okay, welcome to another episode of the Cosmic Laundry podcast. This is also going to be the first episode that is uploaded onto YouTube. So if you're a visual learner or a visual person like I am, you can now watch this on YouTube. Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts. That was a big sigh. A lot of things I want to chat with you about today. So it has been a day. I don't know if it is the eclipses. I don't know if it's just trickle down stuff from being an eldest daughter, but I have been really feeling this guardian energy lately. Um, I've been really working with this frequency and really taking inventory of my life and where I need to step up and take responsibility. This is a really important part of the guardian archetype. There is a reason that the guardian is the first archetype we work with in boot camp, because if you don't have access to your inner guardian, whether this is your primary archetype or not, it's going to be very hard for you to build the life of your dreams. Something that I notice with people who are lacking this archetype within them is they tend to take a very passive role in their lives. They are creative and gifted and brilliant and smart and passionate and beautiful and all of these things, but they don't have the grit, the resilience, or the personal accountability necessary to actually create a good life. A good life does not just happen to you. It's actually something that is a byproduct of your choices. I can always tell when someone has guardian energy somewhere within their psyche because they tend to make good, smart, wise choices, right? Choices that set them up for success and happiness long term. And so, something that I've noticed is that people who are lacking in this energy end up having very hard lives. It's almost like this thing where the more you avoid responsibility and the more you avoid hard things and the more you try to stay in a childlike state throughout your life, the harder your life becomes, because there's a reward with Saturn energy, which is what the guardian is connected to. There's a reward for taking responsibility for things. And even if it's like, oh, I'm taking responsibility for my art, right? It doesn't mean that you are like, oh, I need to be a responsible being and I'm going to not do anything that I love and I'm just going to join a 9 to 5 and have a miserable life. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about taking responsibility. The guardian is really the foundation to everything that we try to create in our lives. It is the foundation for success and happiness and pleasure and long-term joy and even like stability, obviously. So if you're unfamiliar with the archetypes, you can go back. I have a podcast episode called, I think I just called it like the 5 magical hot girls. And I go through all of them in that episode. Really, the Guardian, sorry guys. The Guardian is a Saturn Capricorn archetype. I do see a lot of Virgo tendencies in Guardians as well, or like Virgo placements inside Guardians as well. So we could maybe open this up. But Guardians, whether you have really strong Capricorn in your chart or not, you'll know you're a guardian because you feel very responsible. You feel responsible for your life. You feel responsible for other people's lives. You try to do a good job at everything that you do. And there can be sometimes these perfectionistic or controlling streaks when we're in the low road. So I wanted to do a similar episode to what I did for the 5 things the goddess would never do. And in that episode, I talked about the goddess in her highest potential and what like her mindset, essentially, how she builds the life of her dreams from a goddess perspective. Today, we're going to do the same thing. And I want you to keep in mind that what I'm talking about today is the highest road of the guardian. There is a lot of shadow with these archetypes. There um, is a lot of space for there's a spectrum. Okay. So, what we're talking about today is a guardian that is in their highest potential. And ironically, I think most guardians need to learn the goddess. So, if you're listening to this today and you're resonating and you feel a little bit disconnected from some of the things we're talking about today, you might need to learn the goddess, which is self love. That's where your ability to prioritize self and set boundaries, which guardians are either very good at or they suck at, and there's no in between. So you might need to go back and listen to that episode. For those of you that are interested in Magical Hot Girl Bootcamp, we begin October 7th. And I'm very excited. We have a few more spots left. I am capping it because I want to keep it small and I want to keep it intimate and I want to really be able to support you guys and connect with you. And the bigger the container gets, the harder that is for me. So, yeah, okay. Let's dive into it. I wrote down the 5 things the guardian would never do. Okay, so the first thing she would never do is put her success and happiness in somebody else's hands. In other words, she would never leave her life up to chance. The guardian does not take a passive approach to life, okay? She is active. She knows where she's going, what she wants, and she has the ability to take responsibility for that and move towards it. It doesn't mean she's always perfect, and it doesn't mean that she never has fun or leans into joy or never surrenders, right? You can be a guardian who knows the art of surrender and knows when to take control and when not to take control. But you're just typically not going to see a guardian that says, "Oh, I wanted to do that, but I don't know how." They'll figure it out. They will hop onto Google, right? Google is a guardian's favorite resource. They will figure it out. Guardians are resourceful and they are resilient. They know how to make use of what they have. If they have to acquire something new, they will acquire that. But if they also have to bootstrap it and get scrappy, they will do that. Um, Guardians think about life in terms of the long game. Okay, so you're not going to hear a high road evolved guardian say something like, "Oh, I really want to get my PhD, but by the time I finished it, I would be 37, and then that's like too long." Guardians know that our path, our purpose gets more rooted in, more baked in the older we get, and that time is going to pass anyways. So they look at their life in terms of the grand scheme of things. What do I want to be known for? What is my legacy? What do I want to leave behind? What kind of world do I want to leave behind for my children and my grandchildren? I think of like, I have one friend who is a guardian and he is always talking about the things that he wants to do to set up his children, right? The things that he needs to do now. He's thinking like not even just children, like grandchildren, like legacy, like intergenerational wealth. That is guardian, okay? And so the guardian is not going to leave their lives, their children's lives, or their grandchildren's lives up to chance. They are going to figure out what they want to create and they're going to create a game plan for that. They're typically not going to be one to get into like get rich quick schemes. They understand that good things take time and they're willing to take their time. They're willing to put in the effort. They're willing to slow down. They see a mountain that they want to climb and they are going to figure out how to climb it. And so these are sometimes the people that you'll see in their 20s who are hopefully still having fun and going out and doing things, because I think that if you're not getting some of that experimentation in your 20s, then that speaks to a parentification or a stunting that is going to fuck you up later in life. But they're typically going to be having a good time, but also being very mindful about what they're creating, what they want in their lives. They're going to be reading books and educating themselves and doing mentorships and learning what they need to learn. They're not typically going to be people who wake up at 40 and go, oh, it's time to grow up now. There's this almost like a weight on their shoulders, even from a young age, where they know if I want something, I have to get it. I have to create that for myself. So guardians do tend to be very successful people because they don't leave it up to chance. They make a plan, they adjust, they adapt, they figure it out, and they know how to get what they want, right? And they are patient. So that's the first thing with guardians. And I think that's a very, like, if you're an entrepreneur, or if there's like any long-term vision or goal that you want to create for yourself, the guardian is your go-to archetype for learning how to do that. Okay, another thing a guardian is not going to do is they are not going to sacrifice long-term satisfaction for short-term pleasure. They are not going to do just anything that they want to do whenever they want to do it because it's pleasurable and fun, if that thing is going to cause a lot of problems for them down the road, okay? They are very calculated even in their joy and in their fun. This doesn't mean that they don't have fun. When I look at the guardians in my life, they like I'm like, are they all stoners? They're not all stoners. Some of them are. Um, but they know how to let loose and they know how to have a good time. And they understand that there's a pressure valve, right? This pressure needs to be released, right? An unhealthy guardian is never going to let themselves unwind and have fun. And you're going to feel that. That's going to be in their aura. They're going to have this tension, right? A healthy guardian knows, okay, I need to blow off steam sometimes. I need to let myself have fun. Keep in mind, they know that they're playing the long game. They don't need to be rich, successful, famous, hot, sexy, whatever tomorrow. They just know that that's what they're working towards. So this isn't to say that they never have fun or they never prioritize pleasure, but they're going to be calculated in that. They're going to weigh the pros and cons. They're going to choose and pick their things. They're not typically going to be gluttonous with anything and everything, and they're going to be very responsible. This is the key that you will see is, and this is why I love guardians. I have a moon-Saturn conjunction in my birth chart. So younger me was thrown into guardian territory, and I still have to play this role a lot in my family. I am the family matriarch. I am the family guardian, so to speak. And so I really appreciate and respect and love people who take responsibility for themselves and for their lives. I think that that's a really missing quality in the current world. Um, and so they're going to be responsible. Okay. They're going to partake in life, but they're going to do it responsibly. I think about this with Chantal. Chantal is a guardian. She's also a fairy. She's got some goddess qualities. She's pretty well rounded, actually. But she has a lot of guardian tendencies. And I see this a lot in like, she'll plan to do something really fun, really wild. Like um, she has that like devil may care attitude. She's not too tightly wound. She's not too anything, but she will do things safely. Like she will do dangerous things safely. She is always calculating like what is safe and what is not safe. And this is another thing I really love and respect about guardians is if the guardians in my life are willing to do something dangerous, I trust that they have calculated that risk and that they know that it's worth taking that risk. Okay. It doesn't mean they're always right, but I know that they're conscious. Okay. They're very conscious. They're not doing things on autopilot. They're not following trends. They're not doing something just because everybody else is. They are very conscious in what they choose to do. And so, they're very rarely going to sacrifice what is good for them in the long term by continuously doing something that might be pleasurable but bad for them. Okay. This one is really big as well. this is where goddesses can learn from guardians. They will never prioritize being loved, being adored, having attention, or even like being famous or something like that over self-respect. We actually don't see a lot of guardians in like really, really public positions, believe it or not, even though they are very successful people. They are not chasing the shiny thing. They are not chasing adoration. And they are not typically, a healthy guardian is not chasing something external to them. So you have to show up with self respect or like respect for them, respect for yourself. Guardians will also, they can be very, tough on the people around them. If you don't respect yourself, it's very hard for a guardian to respect you, and that'll show in the way that they treat you. So if you are relating to a guardian, you've got to learn self-respect. It's really attractive to them. But they're not going to be with the person that is maybe loving or gives them a lot of attention or, validates them in these ways if that person is not respecting them. These are people who are really aware of respect, of how important respect is, and for you to not respect them or to continuously do things that they deem as disrespectful is incredibly painful for them. We have a lot of people in the world who can be easily manipulated through these like shiny things. And this is where learning the guardian can really help you because the guardian says, yeah, okay, Brad, you want to buy me a Lamborghini, but you cheated on me last week. Or maybe even it's just like small little pieces of disrespect, right? Things that happen over and over and over. With guardians, again, think about it this way, they are our elders, okay? They are born elders. They have this little like, these wise little souls, even as children. They are here to teach us how to behave and how to act in the world. So you're not going to see a guardian that acts really disrespectful and crazy towards people, and they do not tolerate people acting that way towards them. So they teach us this foundation of relating, right? We don't often think about Saturn energy being related to relationships, but this is the foundation of like, you have to know how to relate to people. You have to know how to read the room and understand what is socially appropriate. You have to understand that there's a time and a place for being authentic and being expressed and being all these things. And then there's also a time and a place for knowing when to shut your mouth and to be respectful. And this is something that guardians teach us. And so they actually tend to have very good relationships. Like that's something that I've noticed about the guardians in my life. They're really, really good at teaching people how to treat them. And they're very good at teaching the people around them with self-respect. You're not going to get a lot of, sorry, I have something in my eye. You're not going to get a lot of passive aggressive or manipulative behavior from a guardian. They're going to tell you straight out, I do not like that. Do not do that again. And if you continue to go against what makes them feel good, they will note that and they will make a decision accordingly. So they really set this standard and this tone in relationships, in our communities, and especially in business too. I was just talking to one of my girlfriends today who is a guardian. Um, and she was talking about how with clients that don't value and respect her policies, like her cancellation policies, things like that, she's like, when they when they stop coming to see me, I'm like, thank God, because we did not align, because you do not respect my time. That's very guardian. Okay. This fourth one is my favorite thing about guardians. It also is the blessing and the curse, and it is something that guardians have to be mindful of, where this can be used against them, and it often will be used against them. So you have to know your limits with this, but guardians never lack accountability. Okay? They know what is their responsibility and what is not their responsibility. They're very rarely going to play the victim. They're very rarely going to um shy away from responsibility or taking accountability. In fact, for most guardians, taking accountability feels safe, right? It feels much safer than putting things in someone else's hands. They typically trust themselves more than they trust you. And so if they take accountability for their life, for their actions, for their whatever, that helps them to feel in control. That helps them to feel safe. And so these are not typically people who are going to lie or cheat or pretend that they didn't do something when they did. Like if you bring something to them, they're going to take accountability and they're going to take that on. It doesn't mean that they always think you're right. So they might be like, yes, I understand your perspective. And here's mine. And here's what I'm going to do about this. It doesn't mean that they're just listening to anything everyone says, because they also understand that you have accountability in this situation too. And so the flip side of this is they expect you to take accountability as well. And a high road guardian is not going to take accountability for stuff that isn't theirs. But you can trust and respect that they are going to take accountability for the pieces that are theirs. This is one of the reasons that they are very successful. We feel like we can rely on them, we can depend on them, we can trust them because they're not hiding. They're not hiding from themselves. They can't typically. The universe gives them a really big slap on the wrist every time they try to shy away from responsibility or not take responsibility. So they have this energy about them where they in every situation tend to look at what could I have done better? What parts of this are my responsibility? What parts of this have I contributed to? And they typically won't go into the blame game or looking at your pieces until they've looked at their own stuff. The problem with this is that people around them can get very used to that and then start to blame them for everything. And guardians will easily take blame for things because they go, okay, yeah, you're right. I can see I could have done this different and that different and this different. And so they have to learn when enough is enough, right? And they have to learn that sometimes it really wasn't their fault. And sometimes this is where guardians can learn from enchantresses. Guardians have to learn that just because they take responsibility or they can control some aspects of life, it doesn't mean they're in control of everything. So sometimes this can bleed into guardians taking responsibility or accountability for things that were out of their control. Guardians have to learn that sometimes the world is chaotic and messy and you can actually predict and control everything, and that you actually might have done nothing wrong. And this is just how something happened. But one of my favorite things about them is that they take accountability. They will very, very rarely lead from a victim mindset. And if they do, it's usually more of a martyr mindset. I know I can be really bad for this. I literally was in this morning. I was like, why can't everyone just take care of themselves? Why do I have to take care of everything? Right? So that's the closest to a victim mindset that you're going to get with a guardian. They will typically just be very empowered. Okay, and then this last one. I can't speak today. This one might actually be my favorite more than number 4. Um this is another reason why I feel that I am surrounded by guardians. We have similar values, right? Our values come from our moon. So even though I'm a goddess, that's my primary archetype, my values, I mean, your values come from your Venus too, but often they're instilled in us in childhood, and my values are very Saturnian, very guardian like. Um you will never see a guardian, a high road guardian. I need to preface this, and maybe we need to do a little there's a little caveat to this, but you will never see a high road, open-hearted, healthy guardian who is unkind to children, animals, the earth, elderly people. There is this desire to protect the vulnerable for the guardian. something I have noticed, they don't have that like Neptunian fairy desire to protect and take care of everyone. Guardians are very much like, if you can take care of yourself, then you need to take care of yourself. But when it comes to children, especially, but children, animals, nature, these things that are very vulnerable and rely on us in a way. I don't know that nature relies on us, but it does rely on us not to continually extract from it, right? So they have this very protective instinct over vulnerable beings. They really take the role of parenting, or maybe they're not even parents, but like being an adult to a child in some way. I'm going to talk about this in terms of children, and then you can take it and apply it to other vulnerable groups. Okay. But something that I really love and respect in guardians is that you'll very rarely see them raise their voice at children. They don't try to intimidate children. They don't try to make themselves feel big and children feel small. They don't do a lot of these like almost normalized parenting things where they don't lose their cool typically. And if they do, they're very good at taking responsibility and apologizing. They understand that they are creating the future generations. And so they are really, really good at guiding. They're really good at looking at what people, what children have as their natural gifts and helping them to develop those. So they take a very mature approach. If you've ever heard someone talking about their kids and they say things like this, the phone goes both ways, right? Or when you hear about parents giving their children the silent treatment or things like that, you're not going to see a guardian doing that. A guardian understands, I am the protector of this little being. I am here to guide them. I am here to, it's my job and my responsibility to be well regulated, well taken care of, and at my best so that I can be the best version of me for this little being. They are not going to be competing. This is what a lot of parents do. I don't know about our generation, but definitely our parents' generation. I don't know if this is still happening as much, but they're not going to be competing with their children for the spot of the child. Okay? They're not going to be expecting their child to take care of their feelings or to take care of them in any certain kind of way. They're not going to be um yeah, they're just not going to be fighting for that role. They're going to approach um this role of parenting or taking care of children. Actually, you even see this in leadership. Like guardian managers and leaders and business owners also take this approach with their staff. They are going to see it, everything in that relationship, as their responsibility, right? It's my responsibility to nurture this connection because I am the one that is in the parent or manager or adult role in this relationship. And so they actually tend to have very good relationships with um their children or their subordinates or things like that. Again, this is only if they're in the healthy road, because the unhealthy road of the guardian can have guardians feeling really burnt out, really stressed, very overwhelmed, and then they can really shut down and become really detached with people. But a healthy high road guardian is an incredible parent. And I do think that a lot of times it's part of their soul's purpose. Like the universe or God or angels or whatever, they just know that guardians, if they're well supported by their community and by their people and they're taking care of themselves, make really, really incredible parents and um, are good souls to have the responsibility of taking care of other souls. And so I do find that a lot of guardians, especially guardian women, um, a huge part of their spiritual path is raising children. Whether that's their own or they adopt or even like Sometimes they become play therapists or work in the schools or things like that. There's this desire to nurture, to guide, to protect, and to take care of something, you know? And they typically, again, only want to do that for people or things or beings that are more vulnerable than them. They don't want to do that for other adults. It doesn't feel fair. And it also doesn't feel empowering. That's something that always that we always come back to. Anyways, that was a lot longer than I was planning. I hope you guys have a great week and we will chat soon.